Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Cryptoware, and today we are going to analyze some more malware, and they will be document-based malware samples. So in the previous video we did get an idea about how to analyze those document files, and I was talking about a specific kind of document file which was an OLE kind of file type. Today we'll analyze some more and we'll be only performing static analysis. We'll try to understand few ways to de-obfuscate a code. Let's not get into what de-obfuscation is, although I had covered the definition in my previous videos. I'll share the link in my description below. But I will be, giving you an idea like how to understand if that particular file is malicious through static analysis. That's it. And also we'll be covering reverse engineering. There will be other samples too, which will be way more complicated than these samples are. These are not that complicated. It is very easy to identify what kind of malicious things they are having. For example, the IoCs. These samples are easy to analyze and identify what those IoCs are. But later on, as we go ahead with the videos, we'll be learning about more advanced malware samples where we might need to perform some reverse engineering also. So for that, I'll be covering those videos in a separate playlist. So for now, let's get started. So I have opened my Remnux Linux, which I'll be using for analyzing those samples. So I have 5 malware samples and all of them are OLE based files. You can see them from here. Now, the very first thing that you can do is whenever you are getting some kind of sample, malware sample, you can check it in the virus total. It will let you know how many scanners have already identified it as malicious. But here we are not going to do, because I know these are malicious, and since I am explaining the malicious behavior of these documents, so we do not need to check that. Also, I'm just giving you an idea of what how we can analyze just simple malwares for now. Going ahead with the videos, we will be learning about how to, statically analyze some more complicated malware samples, and that would not be related to reverse engineering as of now. We'll be covering them later on. So here, as I mentioned, that this is a Microsoft Word. As I explained in my previous video, it is a kind of OLE file. So we'll be using the OLEDUM tool. So in this OLEDUM tool, we'll simply use and run and see what is it giving. So from here, we can see that it has macro. The capital M suggests that it is having some interesting it might be having some interesting functions related to macros, which may actually be getting executed. The smaller m also defines macro, but may or may not contain a lot of interesting information. So right now, currently, we'll just go ahead with the capital M. So the next step, we are performing everything currently using just 2 commands, and that's it. We do not have to go ahead with anything else. At this beginner's level, this is enough for you to understand, practice, and identify the IoCs. IoCs stand for indicators of compromise. And I have already covered what the definition is. And while analyzing these samples, you'll be able to understand it in a more clearer way. Okay, so we see something. Okay. One mistake that we did was we had to use -v. As I mentioned, that if you do not use it, we won't be able to see the samples very properly. Here, although we are able to see, but I think it would be better if we can see it in this way. Since the commands and the content in this macro file is quite less, so I'm not putting it into some other text file. In case, whenever we see that we have a huge number of text or content in that particular sample or in that particular macro, in that case, we'll be putting it in another text file to analyze it properly. So from here, we can see that some basic commands that they use, they have named a VB name, Visual Basic, which they actually use for writing these macros. So with MGMTS, Windows Management, so they are trying to run some kind of function using Windows Management System. You can have a look, or we can actually understand what is it doing. Let's not get into it right now, but understand that this could be considered as one of the IoCs. And this indicates that if I'm downloading a document, why does that document need to connect with the Windows management system? Here it is trying to perform some impersonification. So most of the time they do it to identify the usernames a lot of time, and based on that, they try to perform the rest of the commands. Here we can see that they're also trying to do something. It indicates some path. So it could be another IOC. Another thing that we can see that on startup, it is trying, as it has made a connection with the Windows management system. So here it is trying on startup to perform some kind of activity, process startup. This is another IOC that we can consider, see over here. There's some other, it is trying to spawn an instance. Again, there is a path which is defined. It is using this particular function, and there's some process. Let's be more clear, like what WinMGMTS is. So let us open Firefox. And over here, we'll understand what this is. Why are we doing this? Because it is quite obvious for us to not know what each and every functionality may mean. So in those cases, it is very important for us to understand. We should know how to Google and what kind of documentation we should be following. So once it opens, so WinMGMT is the WMI service with the SVC host running under the local system account. So let's read it in more details to understand what it actually is trying to perform. In all cases, this service automatically starts when the first management application or script requests connection to this namespace. So developers and IT administrators to write scripts. So they are trying to make a connection with the WMI so that it allows the malware authors, in this case, it is allowing that script to run. So for running that script, you need to make a connection with this, and it allows the WMI to run on your local computer. Now, another thing, what could WMI mean? Let's try to understand that. I'm just a beginner. I'm behaving as if I'm completely, although I am kind of beginner, we all are learning right now. So here, if the time when I had started with malware analysis, this is how I used to perform my research, and this is how I used to try to understand what IOCs these could be. So that is how I used to understand what a particular function is trying to do. So WMI stands for Windows Management Instrumentation and is a set of specifications for management of devices and applications in a network from Windows computing system. So basically, if you want to make a connection with the Windows and you want to run some kind of commands application using through Windows, basically, not through Windows, to perform some kind of activity that requires some, permissions or some involvement of the local system. A lot of commands, you do not need any special permissions, but some commands do require some special permissions. Sometimes you cannot run some specific commands. So a lot of times you need to make some connection with the management system and then perform those commands. So in this case, for performing those functions, this VB script or this malicious script is trying to make a connection. By connection, what do I mean is it is trying to initiate some kind of connection with the Windows management system and then spawn some instances and execute some functions. Let's try to understand it in this simpler way. Let us not get into too much technical, and I'm also not trying to explain it in I'm trying not to use too much technical words as of now. So from here we can understand that it is trying to perform something. Another thing that we can see that consists of a set of extensions to the Windows driver model that provides an operating system interface through which some instrumented components provide information and notification. So going ahead, we can see that it is using cal object process.create, and maybe it is trying to initiate this process, which is a cal. We are not sure of it. From here, we can understand only this thing. So this was some understanding of the first malware sample. Don't worry, we will be getting into too much detail as well. For now, let's just analyze and see what could be the possible IoCs. So moving ahead, let's see the second malware sample and understand what IoCs that what are the IoCs that are present in this particular document. So we'll follow the same step. Sorry. So as you can see, we are just using two commands to understand what this particular sample might be containing, and that's it. So understanding the basics is very much based on how you are analyzing the sample and how you are performing your research. So when you don't understand a thing, you can simply Google what is it all about, and there's nothing harm in not knowing things, but it's not good, or it's not fine if you're not willing to learn that. So the next command would be, so this number would be over there, 7, because we are going to analyze that particular macro that we can see, and our document name is malsample2. Okay, so this looks a bit huge, not that huge, but it's a bit, longer than the previous one. So what we can do is we can store it in a different text file, and we can analyze it from there. So now I'll be opening the macro in the Visual Studio Code, and from here we'll try to understand and analyze what is happening. If you want, you can mention what is it, so it becomes easier for you to read. So we can see that the name of the Visual Basic name or the document is new macros. We do not have to get into too much details as of now, but for now you can see that it has tried to obfuscate, or maybe it has tried to make it less readable, and malware authors do so. So obfuscation in very simplest terms means they make your document in such a way that it does not look like very, easily to read. So we have to de-obfuscate that. Sometimes it's quite simpler, sometimes it's way more complicated, and a lot of times it's not possible to de-obfuscate. So you need to give a lot of time. But here we do not have to de-obfuscate anything. It looks normal because they have just used, this is not de-obfuscation, although they have simply used it. They have simply defined few characters, variables, and we don't have to go ahead with that. For now, we are just looking for some indicators of compromise. So as you go ahead, is it trying to make connection with kernel 32? Is it trying to do something? There's some kind of handlers that they have used, which can be a bit of, suspicious thing. Exec-cmd, there is some kind of function, and the name of the function that they have given means like it is trying to execute some command. Even in fact, the name of the function, from the name of the function, you can identify that they have not obfuscated it. Even those things were not obfuscation. I was just giving you an example, like how it may look like. It becomes less readable. So since it is quite readable, so if you try to analyze it properly from, step by step, you'll be able to understand. But for now, we are just checking for understanding how malicious it is. So they have put some comments as well. Initialize the startup info structure. So in an actual obfuscated file, you won't find any comments like that. So now this is something interesting. It is trying to create a process. There's character 112. We have to understand what is it. So here they are trying to perform some sort of obfuscation. Shell.exe. So is it trying to execute something? Now, if you try to understand, if you try to analyze a bit more, OWER is written, and somewhere we can guess that maybe they meant power, and the character value of 112 would be P, and maybe they mean PowerShell.exe. There's another that they are using, this window style hidden. They are again making a connection with the web client. So maybe they are trying to connect with a URL. In the previous video, we saw that the URL was kind of private, but here we can see that this is an actual URL and we do not have to do anything. Maybe it is trying to download putty.exe. Putty.exe is another software which provides you, the SSH service through which you can actually do SSH to another computer, to another device, sorry. So we are not going to check, but if you want to understand if it is malicious or not, you can check this URL in the virus total as well. We are not checking anything as of now. And make sure that whenever you find a URL, you do not directly open it. Like, you do not start looking for the URL over the internet. You never know what it ends up downloading. A lot of malware samples, they themselves do not seem to be malicious, but when they're trying to make a connection to some other server, so at that point of time, they end up downloading some malicious files. So some start proc, so that suggests that some kind of processes that they are trying to start, create process. So here you can see that they have provided the entire thing in Visual Basic. Single quote defines comment. So they have actually written the above command only in a very simpler way. So we do not have to check anything. So this is what they meant, PowerShell.exe and all these things. Wait for shelled applications to finish. So there is some shelled application that is trying to perform some function. And this is how it is closing the handle once everything is done. So they have also mentioned follow script childy on Twitter for the latest hacks. Most probably this is a malware sample. So somebody just has written it for fun. Maybe, I'm not sure. We do not have to get into too much detail, but here we can understand that you can identify the simplest malwares can be identified at the basic level just by analyzing this, just by performing the static analysis. And currently we are dealing with document files. So let's move ahead with another malware sample, which is the third one. And we'll again check this. And we do not need to use any other text file as of now. Let's see how big it is. Okay, it's also pretty huge. So we can name it like this. And let's check another file. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so all those basic things, everything is basic over here. It is trying to create some remote thread. You can see that it is trying to do, let's do one thing. Let's convert it into how it is supposed to look like as a VB. Yeah. So how do you do that? You'll see here is right now there is Visual Basic written over here at the bottom right corner. Instead of that, plain text would be written over there. You just simply click on that. This box opens and here you write the name of the language that you're willing to, uh, get it applied on the specific file. So a lot of times when you are having a Python file or maybe JavaScript, Java, so you can simply use them. So they make it more readable. It becomes easier for you to understand like which one of them is the variable, which one of them is the function. Although while reading, you'll be able to understand, but changing the texture makes it easy for you. Like from here, we can understand where is the function, what is the function right now, by val, what is this, as string, what is it taking? So this becomes easier for us. Going ahead, so we can see there is some array, something over here. And as a malware analyst, it would be our work to de-obfuscate it. I don't think it's obfuscation. Maybe we need to decode it, maybe understand what kind of numbers they have written. Maybe we have to convert it into something so that we can get alphabets. Maybe we need to know the characters. So we have to check that, how to convert them. It is not always necessary for you to know, especially being a beginner. Even I did not, even I had no idea about it. So I still perform a lot of Google search, even for the basic things. I can see that it is a hex code, but I still need to confirm that, yes, it is a hex code. So it is completely fine. Taking some time to understand, taking some time to, Google what is it all about. So currently we are not Googling this. We will be analyzing these things later on. We'll just see what else we can get from the script and anything else that we need to, Google about some functions just to understand the IoCs, we can do that. So there is some program W6432. So we do not know what is it, but there is some environment variable maybe it is talking about, just because environ is written and it is looking for the length. From here we can understand if it is greater than 0. Again, WinDir is another thing that it is using. This looks like some kind of path, and run dll32.exe. So is it trying to run something? We are not sure. But why is it using this? That is something very suspicious. Again, this is something which is, I think, is helping in decoding this particular thing. So we are not doing it right now, but we can identify that since there are so many things that they are doing, so it looks like there is something that they're trying to hide. So apart from this could be some of your IoCs, this could be something very interesting. Maybe while performing dynamic analysis of this document file, we'll be able to see that there is something like this that is getting, that is processing in the background. So from here, we can see that this is doing something. There is something that it is trying to write to. So there's some process that it is connecting to, some process that it is running, and it has hidden it in such a way that it becomes unreadable for the normal people. But we will be decoding this later on, not in today's video, but later on. Let's first analyze and see the rest of the files. So let's see what is their malware sample for. So we have another macro over there. Let's simply put it over there only. Yes, thank God we did that. So from here we can see that there is a function. Let's change it. See here, you can see plain text. I'll choose VB and enter. So it became easier for us to read. So there is a function, because I have no idea how Visual Basic is, we need to write, how the language looks like. Like I can see and understand, but I don't know that. So if you have some knowledge about programming languages, which you have done previously, so it will help you to understand that maybe it is a kind of function that it is getting defined. Message box, maybe it is trying to type something in a message box. There will be some kind of box that it is trying to, declare this message. So as you see that maybe while when this macro gets executed, the first thing that we might see is macro to PowerShell. So the term PowerShell, again, it is not hiding anything. It is not obfuscated. So we can easily analyze what is it trying to do. But this is a real sample, though a real sample, but it's a very old one. So nowadays, it is not very easy to read these things in this way. So let's not get into what is it, but from here we can see that using PowerShell, maybe it is trying to open calculator. So hopefully if we execute or perform dynamic analysis of this file, it will open a calculator. Now we need to see that while opening calculator, is it trying to perform any other function? So here we can see that it is performing another function. And for now, PowerShell and everything related to PowerShell is IoC, and we are not just suspicious, we are getting confirmed right now that it is a malicious file. So no exit command, new property, HKCU defines the registry key. So is it trying to use the registry key, or maybe is it trying to add something to the registry key? So there would be a file name which is t3st.exe. So when we perform dynamic analysis, we'll be seeing creation of this particular file over there. In our process monitor, we'll be able to see creation of this file. Not process monitor, I mean, like you'll be able to see this. Yeah, over there also you'll be able to see. So you can see there is another path that it has defined. It is the same registry key path. And value is 222. Let us not get into detail about what is it trying to do, but we can see that it is creating a file, an exe file, and it is doing something with the registry key, most probably maybe creating a new key over there, registry value, sorry. Another function that is defined over here, another message box. Now here, as you can see with the name of the function, it is trying to make a connection with WMI that we discussed previously. So it is trying to run some Windows related processes. Maybe it needs some help from the drivers, maybe Windows drivers, maybe operating system. So this is another IoC, and we are completely sure right now that it is malicious. It is executing PowerShell. It is trying to make some changes or open or create new registry key. It is making connection with the WMI. Although it is simply opening calculator, maybe that is just to, distract you from the other processes that is happening at the background. There's another thing that is happening over here. See, this is again H key. The thing that you saw over here, HKCU, is this H key current user. So it is making some changes to the registry key related to the current user as of now. So it is again maybe executing this. So we have no idea. See, set string value. So it is setting a value to the registry key. We will learn about the registry keys also later on. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to have a separate video on registry keys and the changes that happen. Although while analyzing malware samples, you will get used to it, and while doing research on your own, you'll be able to understand what are all these things. Now we have another function which is macro to WMI to PowerShell. So maybe it is now connecting the WMI and PowerShell. Let's see what is it doing. Another message box we have. So this process called create PowerShell calculator another thing that it is trying to run. So yes, here we can see again they are making use of the registry key, and they have already defined the registry value. So from here we can see that this is the value, this is the registry key that they're creating, and that's it from here. And call defines when you're calling the function. But here, as you can see, that these two commands has single quote in the beginning. So these two are comments, but this is the actual function that would be called. And when this is called, everything will be run over here. So we have analyzed a bit this particular macro, and let's move ahead with the next macro, the final sample that we are having. So, okay, the fifth one. Okay, we have just capital M. There is no supporting macro documents over here. Let's name it 5. This is 3. And let's see. Okay, this is a very simple one, smaller one, in fact. Okay, this document, it is not having too much things, but from here you can understand it is again using PowerShell.exe. It is trying to bypass something. It is trying to invoke a web request, and there is a URL. Make sure while you're analyzing these samples on your own, please do not, use this link on your URL and, try to open this link. They can be droppers, they can be downloaders. They might end up downloading malicious samples. From here, you can see that it looks like it is downloading some kind of file. The path is pretty suspicious. There's Romeo and Juliet, and maybe it is calling something from there. Maybe that is something different. I did not check it, but here we are looking for IoCs. So another web request that it is making, Outlook.application. So is it trying to create an Outlook? They have also written a comment over here. First, create Outlook object. So you won't be able to understand what is it, and maybe something happens as a result. There is some shell that is getting created. So overall, while analyzing this particular macro, you can guess that when you execute this macro, when you enable the macro for your particular document that you have downloaded, it gets executed, it connects with the URL, it downloads something, or it connects with something. And when it connects with something, there is some object that gets created, and maybe it's Outlook, maybe it's related to Outlook. And there is something that gets created in your machine or in your device, which is a shell, named as wscript.shell. And the name and your previous experience does suggest that it is going to perform some kind of malicious activity. And you have the shell.execute. So it is trying to execute both the commands from here. So this was a simple analysis of this malware. The malware samples are very simple. They are better than the previous sample. Better than the sample that we saw or analyzed in my previous video. But as we'll go ahead, we will see some more samples which are a bit complicated as compared to these samples. And we'll be analyzing just from the document itself. We are not doing any reverse engineering right now. We are not using any debugger right now. And also we are not performing any dynamic analysis, but we'll be analyzing different kinds of documents. Right now we are dealing with the OLE file. Later on we'll deal with the PDF files, maybe again .exe files, some .sh files, some shell scripts, some bash files. So we'll be analyzing those files too, but statically. Once we get an idea of how to thoroughly analyze a malicious file, just statically, without performing any reverse engineering, without doing any dynamic analysis, then we will move ahead with the other steps. When are we going to require, the usage of debugger or reverse engineering, using that skills, reverse engineering skills? When are we going to use that? Once we have learned all these things, we have understood how to analyze, de-obfuscate a malware sample statically. And after that, once we understand how to perform dynamic analysis and get information, everything from there, then we will be dealing with those kind of malware samples which do not get executed when you're using a sandbox or a virtual machine. So there are levels for understanding different steps, different skills while performing malware analysis. Right now, we are just dealing with the basics. And in our next video, we'll be dealing with similar kind of documents, but they'll be a bit more advanced compared to today's one. So see you in the next video. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you for supporting. See you in the next session. Bye.